Kia ora. It's the Reverend Dr. Te Tangaroa here. And apart from having a large ginger butt in your face, I am continuing to make something. I wasn't actually going to make a video of this build, but you know what, I kind of need to talk about some stuff. So you're joining me about halfway through building a unicorn head. I've already thrown out the box because, like I said, I wasn't actually intending to record this. Yes, you've been left alone for absolutely hours, and this is the worst thing that has ever happened. So, this right there is what we're building. An adorable unicorn, and it is an absolute nightmare to build. I'm not going to pretend that this is easy, because it is not. But at the end of the day, it's just another afternoon. So I'm going to try and figure out where I'm up to, and we'll carry on. No doubt everyone and their dog is aware of what has happened today. For the purposes of posterity, Russia has invaded the Ukraine, which I don't want to talk about because it's just war's bad, okay? A bunch of young men and women are going to go and die. So a bunch of old rich white dudes can continue being old rich and white. That is my categorically hot take on the nature of war. It is about having young women go off and die, so become richer. And also I haven't, as of recording of this, I haven't actually posted the previous build video I did of the sunflowers, etc. It was pretty glad now we sat on the camera cable and has displayed it, so the astute amongst you may notice some new flowers in the vase. I've got a video for those, but as it discusses events as recently, I'm not sure whether or not I'm going to post it. I mean, there's a very good argument to just say damn it all and post that shit, son. But there's also an argument saying, well, act in haste, repent in leisure, something. Okay, so we are now building Pinky Bits on. So this is another Loz kit. I think I've mentioned how much I like these kits. The Lego is smaller, or the building blocks, I suppose. It's not really Lego. Not real Lego. Not the kind of Lego that our forefathers and five mothers fought wars for. That's just some grim gullies humour, kids. I hope your parents didn't actually fight wars for Lego. They may have. But Netherlands is a very confused place. So I think... So yeah, needless to say, the instructions on this particular bit are about as clear as mud, which, yeah, it's just a thing. You know, we put on our big girl scrunchies and attempt to soldier through because there ain't much else to do. And yeah, I find the discourse around these things always becomes, I want to say interesting, but what I actually mean is toxic as all fuck. Like, it just instantly, the dialogue around the West and the East is just intensely toxic. And rather than nuance and understanding, you just have everybody firing off with their half-assed, pissed hot takes, mine included. Like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be better than everybody else and not inflict my hot takes on the world. That's what we've got Twitter for. So I can just unleash the insanity that is the swirling noise of brainworms that exist inside my skull. Because like I said, I'm not better than anybody else. Um, but I do kind of want to talk a little bit about why I've decided to continue to use the sobriquet or the honorific of Doctor of Divinity, and the use of the term Reverend. I realise that it's probably going to piss off / alienate quite a few people, which I'm going to just be okay with, because I'm going to piss off and alienate people by breathing. So there isn't really the spirituality in which I believe that I subscribe to was actively prohibited and suppressed by the English. The Tohunga Suppression Act kind of wiped out the practitioners of the faith I subscribe to. So there is no real way for me to formally become a Tohunga. He's not one a spiritualized nature, which it complicates things. Whether or not it starts bringing up the whole how much respect should we pay to formal institutions and formal study, and whether or not you can even decolonize yourself while you show these things respect. So there's a small amount, I guess, of shit talking, shit taking with my use of it by usurping it, for lack of a better term. I am helping to lower the amount of reverence that reverends are held to, which is a noble enough goal in and of itself, let's be honest. But that's not, if I'm honest with myself, that's not even 10% of the reason why I did it. I am followed on Twitter by quite a few rabbis, and one of them I kind of respect. She is a very, very wise rabbi, and we've discussed a few things. We've discussed, I say we like I'm any sort of competent. I'm not even really a good philosopher. Push comes to shove, but she has expressed interest and appreciation of, I don't want to call it the wisdom that I bring to the table, because I kind of feel that that's elevating what I bring to the table a bit too much. Does a shit-talking person that didn't even finish high school, let alone university, and whose highest achievement is a trade certificate. That means I'm qualified and legally responsible to run a kitchen. For those that are playing along with a copy of our home game and don't actually know what a trade certificate entitles you to, my trade certificate basically means that I can be legally held accountable for the running of a kitchen, which, maybe you think that's a good thing, maybe you don't, maybe you're like, why does anyone have to be legally held responsible for anything that happens in a kitchen? And that's a very complex discussion to wade into, which you might as well. What else are we going to do? It's kind of important that someone is legally accountable in a kitchen, because you can kill people really easily with food. My favourite thing is the fact that rhubarb leaves are extremely toxic, and rhubarb leaf poisoning looks a lot like pneumonia. Now, here's a fun little thing for you. It was very common to grow rhubarb in England, and it was almost accepted that if a dude, let's say a dude's a wife beater and he retires, he was almost certainly going to be fed rhubarb by his wife until he died, or she was going to boil flypaper in his tea until he died. And it was just kind of accepted. I'm not going to sit there and say that everyone's like, oh, it's cool, Grandma killed Granddad. that's not what I mean. It was kind of like just, well, he beat his wife every day for their entire married life. And then he retired and kept going. So, kind of, what did he expect? And the answer is, well, clearly, what he got. And once again, that's not to sit there and say that Granddad deserved to get poisoned or whatever. I think I've mentioned that these instructions in particular are not fantastic. Okay. So, I am struggling a little bit with them because this entire thing is made up of many, many little layers. But as you can see, it is definitely a gorgeous unicorn. And well worth building. And this kit was exactly the same cost as the other kits that I've built of the Lols range, which is kind of why I wasn't going to build it, because it is either going to be surprisingly easy and go together like a red hot dream, or it is going to be a screaming kick in the dick. And I don't really think there's a middle ground with this particular one. And I think I've already fucked up. So, I mean, and I am consistently having to tear apart layers that I have done and redo them, much like I'm doing now, because it is such. And also it's Philly, and I don't want to overplay how easy / difficult putting this bugger together is. But, you know, compared to a Lego kit, this is definitely a kick in the dick. So what have we got going on? Build up to there. So now it should be. Okay. Oh, I see what's going on. Okay. Yeah, the problem is like these clear coloured blocks and the non-coloured blocks are kind of used interchangeably, and it's a little bit of a shit fight trying to figure out exactly what they intend by different bits and what the actual end result that we're hoping for is. Right, okay, cool, figured it out. I'm saying an awful lot. Anyway, so back to the important thing of how dare I bother you to use term of respect, such as so how dare I use a term of respect, such as oh, yeah, cool, okay, once again, mistakes were made, blame has been apportioned. Is one, I actually am an ordained minister. It is a couple of churches. The Church of Spiritual Humanism is the one I've been an ordained member of for the better part of 15 years at this point. But going back before that to, well, and now currently I'm an ordained member of the ULC, Universal Church, which, yeah, I understand that a lot of people are going to sit there and it's just still shit posting. Yeah, cool, man. That's like your opinion and stuff. You know, I'd argue that the Catholic Church is kind of a massive shit post, but they actually allow me to use the term reverend. Being an ordained member of these two organisations actually allows me to be a reverend. So those organisations, whether or not you want to agree with them or not, you think they're just, you know, shit posters online or whatever, that's cool. I kind of think that universities like Yale and Harvard are just fucking diploma mills for the hyper wealthy. And that's just like my opinion, man. So I don't have a massive amount of respect for institutions that other people do have a lot of respect for. So instead, I tend to respect people more. I find people much easier to deal with than institutions. As we continue. And because of that, I guess I would call it inclination, desire, to not have to deal with individuals rather than organisations. If I was ever going to join a church, it would have to be a weird esoteric one, because I am a weird esoteric individual. It's important to know these things about yourself. Anyway, and when someone, back to how I internally justify doing this type of stupidity, a rabbi I deeply respect, who I think is a deeply intelligent woman, who definitely has her head screwed on right, has accused me a few times, and I use the term accuse, and I realise that some people may take exception to me saying that she accused me, but she has accused me several times of coming up with some profound wisdom, and she has asked my opinion on matters pertaining to my belief system, and had me weigh in on things that I don't feel I really am qualified to weigh in on, but she's asked my opinion and I've expressed it as, the understanding that this is the opinion of an arsehole. And she's still gone like, well, yeah, I don't understand, you don't speak for everybody, you merely speak for yourself, we all merely speak for ourselves. And what I have said has been, I don't want to say accepted as wisdom, but it's been, acknowledged as it is a correct position to have, and it's kind of like, well, they're a rabbi, they're highly trained, and they're extending to me the professional courtesy of an equal. And there is an organisation that is more than prepared, that I've been a member of for years, that says I'm allowed to call myself an equal to people like them. And it's kind of like, well, how many more people's permission do I need before I acknowledge this is a thing that I'm allowed to have? And I think there's a little bit of... There is a small, large amount of imposter syndrome hiding in that. Like, at what point do you become real? And okay, cool. You got imposter syndrome. It does bring up a very interesting point. Are you even good enough to have imposter syndrome, mate? Which, quite frankly, is one of my favourite jokes. And I realise a lot of people can be like, that's mean, stop being mean to yourself. And I'm like, no, I like being mean to me, it's fun. I deserve it. No, maybe I don't. Maybe nobody really deserves themselves being mean to them. But the fact is, I'm going to be mean to me. And so there's a part of me that sits there and goes, well, at what point do you acknowledge other people's acknowledgements? Like, surely there comes a point where you kind of just gotta... You gotta put on your big girl G-string and you gotta suck it up and go, well, people I respect treat me as an equal. Maybe, in spite of everything I think and feel about my own worth and my own place in the world. Maybe, since I respect these people, if they feel I belong, maybe I do. Maybe them saying that I belong is enough. Maybe it should be enough. And if I don't feel it's enough, isn't that kind of now on me? Like, okay, cool, I don't feel that I should be claiming a title that puts me in the same position as rabbis, because I do not feel that I have the wisdom, intelligence, or whatever to be in that particular space? Well, if one rabbi keeps inviting me into that space and says that I'm welcome in that space, am I welcome in that space? I'm not challenged in that space. No one sits there and says I do not belong in that space. It is accepted that this well-respected rabbi says I'm allowed in this space. And so the imposter syndrome continues. Should I be taking up space in this place? Do I have the right to take up space in this place? I kind of feel that, well, as long as I don't, maybe I'm allowed in this space if I sit at the back and keep my mouth shut. And for the most part, I do. I follow along with quite a few theological debates online, and I know that I do not have the requisite qualifications to come swinging in there like a son of a bitch and say, you're all wrong, this is how it is. And so, I try to keep myself small, and if I feel I genuinely have something to add, I will add something. And every time I do, there's, it's kind of like you see half a dozen rabbis or whatever sit there and like it and then share it, and it's like, no one's caught on that I don't belong here yet. I'm just going to keep it at the back and shut my mouth, and maybe I'll get to stay a little bit longer. Because I actually do find theological spaces very interesting. I find theology very interesting. I think one of the most interesting things we do as people is attempt to explain the world in which we find ourselves. And I really think it's a case of the world in which we find ourselves. I don't feel that we're attempting to explain the world as it truly is, or that we're even capable of explaining the world as it truly is. The best we can kind of hope for is some kind of, well, this is how the world appears to be me in this specific space at this specific time. That kind of mealy-mouthed extreme, I am saying this, but with many, many caveats. And I think that's the closest way we get to true wisdom, is that, and I know that's intensely unsatisfying to a lot of people. A lot of people find that kind of mealy-mouthed, maybe. They find that intensely unsatisfying, and they want solid answers and definitive everything. And I kind of fall into the camp of, there ain't nothing definitive. There is not a lot of, I don't want to say there's not a lot of truth, because I think there's a lot of truth out there. I think there is a lot of agreement to be made. I kind of subscribe to the subjective nature of reality, and that we, as people, really 100% need to sit down and agree as to what reality is. And I think that's what culture is. It is people, groups of people fundamentally agreeing. I'm gonna little rainbow head. A whole bunch of people agreeing as to what they feel the actual nature of reality is. And once again, I kind of find that the differences and the similarities you find from people in similar type places, it's one of those things I found fascinating. Namely because I think, as far as we know, dolphins don't have religion. I mean, they might. God, I hope they do. That'd be amazing. Eventually, sit down and discuss theology with a freaking dolphin. Sign my dumb ass up. That sounds magical. Can you imagine how alien and alien, I mean, well, no, screw it, you'll figure it out. Imagine how alien their worldview would be, just purely from the way they are. Damn, that'd be fascinating. sit there and talk with a dolphin as to the nature of being and unbeing, and trying to come up with a mutual understanding of what reality is. Like that would be tremendous. That would be so exciting to just be able to have that conversation with a dolphin. It'd be amazing. Like I would also love to have the exact same conversation with any animal. I would love to sit there and understand the philosophical leanings of cats, because I think everything has a philosophy. I mean, when you get right down to the kind of crunchy, gritty, what is reality, what is philosophy, I think that you would definitely have. Oopsie, I put everything in slightly the wrong place. Well, good thing I suck at this. I think that'd be interesting. I think that would be possibly like that if we could sit there and speak to dolphins. I mean, like, considering they do things like rape and murder and commit crimes of passion, it would be interesting to see if they have morality. Not necessarily the same morality as people, because I don't believe in the universal nature of any given singular morality system. But do they attempt to justify it beyond, the only way I could get what I wanted was through killing? Like elephants, for example, will cheerfully destroy trees that they're feeding on once they've finished feeding on them, to prevent other troops. Is it a troop of? Another organisation of another herd of elephants getting those resources. They'll happily just destroy the resources. And to me, that's kind of terrifyingly interesting, because that's what people do. We would happily destroy something rather than share, because sharing ultimately, if you destroy the resource, yes, you've stolen the resource from yourself, but you've strengthened a non-allied group. So there's some solid arguments, there's solid philosophical arguments for the destruction of resources that you cannot consume. There's also intense philosophical arguments as to why that's monstrous. But I would 100% love to sit down and talk to an elephant about it. To find out what is their hot take on why they do it. Do they attempt to justify it? Or do they just go, obviously that is what you would do? You would obviously destroy the resources because sharing is for losers. And I think that would be a fascinating conversation to have. You know what I mean? Like, it would be so interesting. You would learn so much about the nature of how minds work, which is another topic I find fascinating. It's like, is our idea of self universal? I mean, well, no, because we can't even come up with a singular idea of what consciousness is, and at what point people are conscious or aren't unconscious. Plus this whole argument as to the continuation of consciousness. For people, like, are you the same person you are when you wake up as when you went to sleep? Which, there is a part of you that's like, well, obviously, of course we are. And that's just, how could you even doubt that? It's like, well, when you go to sleep, your brain subtly changes itself in ways that aren't readily apparent, at least to you. So, once again, there is an argument that you cease to exist every time you go to sleep. Kind of terrifying, isn't it? That you, as in the you that exists right now, goes to sleep and doesn't exist anymore. Like, I know people who shy away from the realization and the speculation of ideas like that because they find it so mind-bendingly terrifying. Which is, once again, it's a position I understand. I understand why that seems terrifying. Me, I find it fascinating. I am not right in the head in any way, shape, or form. And I find these ideas extremely interesting. I'd love to explore them. I love exploring them. But I understand why other people, normal people, don't find them as fascinating. Or okay. Oh no, that's a 3 and a little 1. Okay. So I can 100% understand why people would find these discussions terrifying. Me, I love them. You know, and I accepted a long time ago that there's a subset of people called normal. I am not a member of that subset. Any appearance of me towards the subset that is known as normal is purely coincidental and should not be accepted as proof of anything. So we'll go there. And then oh man, we got a little pink glass mohawk on this bad boy. Oh yeah. I'm not actually sure how easy this is coming up, but this is like many layers of small amounts of stuff. So I think I already mentioned that I suffer from a chronic case of giant handism, Mongo hands, as it is known amongst the fraternity. And you know, once again, I'm comfortable with it being called Mongo hands. If other people take exception with being called Mongo hands, I apologise profusely and sincerely. I'm cool with having Mongo hands. We are adding the little is to a unicorn. Because clearly that is a normal thing that a 40-year-old non-binary person should be doing late on a Tuesday evening. Any resemblance I make towards a normal or responsible person is purely coincidental and should not be relied upon for any life-changing decisions you may or may not make involving me or you or them. In short, it's all fun and games until you rely on nutters like me. Okie dokie. So we've now got our little... Oh damn, I didn't make the eyes yet. How could I not make the eyes yet? I'm a terrible human being. Okay, so we're going to make little unicorn eyes that will go on either side. And these are like, I think they're amazing. Because you've also seen, well, I hope you've figured out the... That should go... Oh my god. I'm sorry. I bought this kit, like I said, because I thought it was adorable. I was not intending to make a video out of it. Just kind of need to blow some steam. And yeah. Okay, so I just need to show you that. How fucking adorable is this? Yeah. I don't care who you are. That is fucking awesome. You're allowed to disagree with me as to the level of awesome you think this is. I just need you to understand, though, if you do disagree with me, you're wrong. And I'm sorry you've had to find out this way that you're wrong. Not everybody gets to be right. And yeah, this is one of those situations you just find yourself in. So now we're going to make the little ice cream cone that makes up the unicorn's horn. Because once again, I cannot stress how amazingly adorable this kit is when it goes together. And once again, this is not a kit that LEGO would ever have the cojones to put out there, because I can imagine quite a few people would be upset about such a pride-filled little guy. You know, there would be protests. LEGO's making everyone gay! Well, yeah, I thought they were gay before LEGO showed up, mate. Like, no easy way to say this, but you're probably wrong. Like, You know, I'm not going to sit there and say 100% you're wrong. I'm just saying, in the balance of things, you are almost certainly wrong. Ooh, so this appears to be a many-coloured horn. And I was thinking it wasn't going to be this many colours, and I was wrong. And finally, the ice cream cone goes there. Oh man, this is definitely an ice cream cone unicorn. If you're not aware of what I'm raving on about with ice cream corn unicorn, one, I'm kind of sad. I feel a little upset for you. Clearly you've led a deprived and depraved childhood. Anyway, there's a card game involving unicorns. And one of the things that is in the game is a series of unicorns that are ponies with ice cream cones on their head. And I'm just going to let you sit with that because I think that is magical. So, this goes there. No, wait, what have we done? Ah, that's what we've done. We forgot a layer. God damn it, kids, how could you let Papa do that? I hold you all personally accountable for not coming in here and smashing the pieces out of my hand. Because you all should have been able to invent time machines by now. I can't do everything. And I feel 100% that the lack of time machines in this timeline is definitely cool. Okay, seriously, ice cream cone horn. That is amazing. This unicorn is just happiness. Oh, and I need to put the stars on the unicorn because I've forgotten to put the stars on. That's right, kids. We have little stars, and the unicorn needs stars. Well, they're a bit too big for it, but I don't care because we are going large or we are going home. And we can put the smaller ones on the unicorn butt. Okay, so this is currently our unicorn head. I need you to appreciate how magical this is. Just look at it. Bask in its glory. This is possibly the greatest $14 I've ever spent. That's the other thing I need to stress. This kit literally was $14. Ugh. Okay. I look at the next thing I'm about to do and I'm like, oh, that looks deeply, deeply unpleasant. That's like, haha, joke's on you. It's not just deeply unpleasant. It is in fact profoundly, deeply unpleasant. So, but yeah, so being invited into the space of religious leaders by religious leaders and not being kicked out for being a fraud, a fake and an arsehole, you know, it kind of, I don't want to sit there and say, look what you've wrought, you can't kick me out now, I'm already here. But it is nice being welcomed into a space. And it is nice feeling that I have something to contribute to that space. Now, there's arguments as to whether or not I do actually contribute anything to that space. So, there we go. Now it all becomes clear as mud. So yeah, needless to say, a lot of building this in the very early stages is fiddly, which was the other reason I decided not to record it. Is the lots of fiddly little messing around. We all know how good I am at messing around with fiddly little things. I never lose my temper. Goddamn son of a badge. Hang on, how's that gonna work? So... What? Okay, so this needs to go down there like that. Alright. Okay. Wait, what? Okay, I'll tell you what. just keep doing this a different way until it looks like everything's going to. There we go. Now stuff becomes a little bit clearer, maybe, kind of. So, that hanging off the end. So that hanging off there. Did I mention how fiddly this was? Okay, so that needs to go there. See, like I said, it's just this initial building section is actually quite fiddly. But then once you start getting the second layer on and the third layer, it all kind of almost comes together, I hope. That's the wrong piece, mate. This is the other thing. There are so many little pieces that almost look correct until you start to look at them slightly squinty-eyed, and then you're like, yeah, it doesn't go there, does it? Much like life. Anyway, so yeah, if you've been worried that, and you follow me on Twitter, that suddenly he's engaged in some sort of novel shitposting by this adoption of the Right Reverend, you are correct. It is a form of elaborate shitposting. I'm just not likely to stop, I guess, would be the point to underline here. Because, you know, once again, I do legitimately feel like, while it is a legitimate space, and that there are people who are members of institutions that undergo years of training to be able to claim that lofty height. Some of us belong to institutions that merely require you to put your hand up and go, can I be one of them reverendy type peoples, please? And, you know, there is... Wait, what's going on here? Ooh, that looks like it's giving me a headache, because it is. Okay. Cool. Okay, now really, what the fuck is going on now? Alright, that. Okie dokie. Well, I reckon after making the head and getting this bottom part sorted, I think I'm probably going to call it there, because this is a big old pile of what the fuck. And as much as I know you guys love to watch me struggle and curse and carry on as I do these things, I'm also a little bit like, maybe I don't really feel like struggling this much. So, why did I not put that up far enough? Okay, maybe that's it. Join us for next week's exciting. I kind of hope I'm doing this right, because I have a sneaky suspicion I'm not going to find out for a little while as to whether or not we've done it correctly or incorrectly. But isn't that half the fun? No. That is not half the fun. Okay. Alright, and that appears to be that. So then we wanted the best thing is, I'm not sure if you guys have noticed, the table I've got all the stuff poured out upon is white, which makes it really, really perfect for getting all these little white pieces. Reminds me of that bit in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, well, one of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy books. Where every time I press a black button, a black light lights up to a black on black display to tell me exactly what the button I've pressed does, because the spaceship is metal as hell. So obviously if it's metal as hell, then it must be metal as hell. Okay, so now what's gone wrong? Excellent. I've definitely made another mistake. Who's surprised at this point, honestly? So that needs to go there. I mean, let's be honest, I haven't got one of these kits right the first time without pulling most of the bits off halfway through. You know that I've been killed and replaced with a really cheap doppelganger. And then questions would have to be asked as to why would you kill him and replace him with a cheap doppelganger? Anyway, this is what we're up to. This is the basis for, I'm guessing, the bottom of our unicorn's head. Maybe. Anyway, I'm going to call it quits there because it is hot, sweaty and miserable in this Brisbanian weather. But needless to say, I will definitely continue making this little guy on camera because, yeah, look, that's just adorable. You all need this in your life. Toodles.